This is Daily Homeless News, where tell the stories no one else will. Venice Beach, a place etched into the American imagination as a symbol of sun-soaked freedom, eclectic culture, and bohemian charm. Tourists flock to its boardwalk, artists line the sidewalks, and the Pacific Ocean rolls endlessly in the background. But take a step back from the surf shops and street performers, and you'll find a very different scene unfolding in the very same streets, a growing humanitarian crisis. In the land of billion-dollar beachfront views, we've somehow normalized thousands of people sleeping just steps from million-dollar condos. In the shadows of its palm trees, the Venice neighborhood of Los Angeles has become an undeniable epicenter of homelessness in America. The streets don't lie, and the truth doesn't need drama, it just needs to be seen. If this hits close to home, speak up. Add your voice in the comments, and if you want more honest stories about the reality of being homeless in America, hit that subscribe button and walk with us through the neighborhoods most people overlook. Step away from the beachfront boutiques and trendy cafes, and you'll find a parallel world unfolding on the sidewalks and parking lots. In this world, people sleep in tents inside rusted vans, or worse, on bare concrete with nothing but a thin blanket, if that. According to the most recent 2024 RAND report, the total number of unhoused individuals in Venice hasn't dropped. It's simply stopped growing, but let's be clear, stabilization isn't success. It's the bureaucratic way of saying we've hit pause on progress. What's even more disturbing is the sharp rise in the number of those who are completely unsheltered. In just a short time, that percentage has jumped from 20% to a staggering 46%. This isn't just about statistics, this is about real lives unraveling on the pavement in a city that exists within one of the wealthiest nations on earth. The Homeless in America crisis isn't a distant tragedy. It's right here, playing out on the streets of a neighborhood once known for creativity and culture. Venice has become a battleground between policy failure and human endurance. City officials tout investment and reforms, yet the day-to-day reality tells a different story. Thousands still live under open skies, exposed to cold, danger, and illness. And while their voices remain unheard, the entire community feels the weight. Public health is strained, crime concerns escalate, local businesses suffer, tourists hesitate, not knowing whether to stop for a selfie or silently walk past someone living in complete despair. Residents, meanwhile, are caught in an emotional crossfire, torn between compassion and fatigue. Venice isn't just slipping into dysfunction. It's fraying at the seams, and when tens of millions of dollars barely move the needle, you have to ask, is this a resource problem or a refusal to confront the real root causes of homelessness in America? New York may be 3,000 miles away, but many of its policy models echo in Venice. The city of Los Angeles has poured millions into programs that sound impressive on paper. The Bridge to Home initiative, for instance, is designed to offer 1,000 beds to people battling severe mental illness, many of whom live unsheltered. It's a step forward, yes, but one that feels more like a slow limp in a marathon. The safe haven shelters, with lower barriers and fewer rules, were meant to be more inviting alternatives to traditional shelters. And in theory they are, but how many beds are actually available when someone shows up, desperate and ready for help? Too often, the answer is zero. Venice has also introduced 24/7 public restrooms and hand washing stations, initiatives that seem noble until you realize they're just window dressing. Offering someone soap and a toilet when they don't have a bed is like offering a bucket to a person drowning in the ocean. If the city wants to make real change, it needs more than optics. It needs outcomes, but first it needs to admit that current efforts are falling painfully short, which leads us to the deeper causes, those ugly, uncomfortable truths that too often go unspoken. To truly grasp what's happening on the streets of Venice, we have to stop pretending this is just a coastal problem or a city management issue. What we're seeing is a symptom of something far larger, a nationwide collapse in the systems meant to keep people safe, stable, and housed. The phrase homeless in America doesn't just describe someone without an address. It describes a person without options, without protection, without a net to catch them when life spirals out of control.
I'm with you there. What would you want housed people to know about homelessness that they don't know?
If you don't keep up with your rent and stuff, you can and will be tossed out on your behind.
The first cracks in the foundation almost always begin with housing. Venice was once a haven for artists, working class families, and blue-collar renters. That world is gone. Urban redevelopment didn't just creep in, it steamrolled the community. Rent-controlled units that once served as a refuge were demolished, repackaged, and sold to remote tech professionals or wealthy investors looking for beachfront property. Longtime residents, many of whom helped shape the very soul of Venice, were simply priced out and pushed out. And when rent becomes impossible, the next stop is the street. Besides, mental health and substance use don't cause homelessness alone, but they make escaping it exponentially harder. Many individuals living outdoors in Venice carry the weight of untreated PTSD, bipolar disorder, or deep-rooted addiction, but the help they need isn't there. Public services are paper thin. If you need a bed in rehab or to see a psychiatrist, you could be waiting weeks, maybe months. That kind of delay is a death sentence when you're surviving hour to hour. For those battling inner demons with no support, it's no wonder the cycle becomes inescapable. Then there's the catastrophic failure of institutional exit systems. When people leave jail, age out of foster care, or get discharged from hospitals, they're often released into a void. No housing plan, no caseworker, no job referrals, no next step. We call it re-entry, but there's no actual pathway back into society. It's not just a broken system, it's a non-existent one. And we can't overlook the racial disparities baked into all of this. The legacy of redlining, segregation, and generational disinvestment means that Black, Latino, and indigenous people are vastly overrepresented in homelessness statistics. Venice might have sunshine and sand, but it also reflects the harshest truths of economic and racial inequality in modern America. Yes, this is overwhelming, but that's what makes it real. The scope of the crisis is massive, and pretending it's not won't make it disappear. If we ever hope to fix it, we have to confront all of it. The housing crisis, the broken healthcare system, the non-existent safety nets, and the racist structures that keep certain groups permanently at risk. So then the question becomes, what, if anything, has the government actually done to stop the bleeding? Governor Gavin Newsom has repeatedly stood in front of microphones to promote his administration's efforts to fight homelessness, proudly highlighting the $827 million in funding poured into various programs across California. At first glance, that number sounds massive, even reassuring. But once you take a closer look, the shine fades quickly. A significant chunk of that funding goes toward short-term fixes, emergency shelters, temporary housing, and transitional programs that sound promising, but often fail to offer any lasting path out of homelessness. These are stopgaps, not solutions. In November 2024, Californians voted to pass Proposition 1, a sweeping $6.38 billion bond measure aimed at expanding mental health facilities and creating supportive housing. And it was marketed as a historic investment, a game changer. But here's the million-dollar question: how much of that money will actually filter down to the people sleeping on the sidewalks of Venice? Or will it drown in layers of bureaucracy, county departments, grant cycles, administrative fees, and red tape? California has a long track record of turning big promises into underwhelming outcomes, especially when it comes to the homeless crisis. One of the most publicized efforts, the Inside Safe initiative, is a perfect example of this gap between intention and impact. The program aims to remove people from street encampments and place them in hotel rooms or makeshift shelters. And to be fair, it has helped some, but it's deeply inconsistent. Some individuals are moved into safe spaces, only to be relocated again, or pushed back out when funding shifts or room availability runs dry. Others are offered services, then left in limbo. It becomes a cycle of people shuffled from place to place with no clear destination or long-term support. It looks like progress on paper, but on the ground it feels more like a revolving door. Despite the billions being spent and the headlines boasting success, the real engine behind any progress isn't the state. It's the local nonprofits and grassroots organizations that grind every single day without recognition. These are the teams distributing food, providing outreach, finding shelter beds, and navigating a chaotic system for people who have nowhere else to turn. They work without fanfare, but they also work with limited resources. And in a system that often feels built to fail, even the most committed efforts start to buckle. So what happens when political victories don't translate into real change? What happens when bureaucracy outpaces compassion? The answer is simple and it's tragic. The most vulnerable among us are left to pay the price again and again. For a city like Venice, overflowing with culture, wealth, and progressive pride, there should be no excuse for letting people rot on the sidewalks. And yet here we are, watching human suffering unfold in broad daylight, while the rest of the city debates parking permits and Instagram aesthetics. Let's be honest. The current patchwork of shelters, pilot programs, and half-hearted task forces is like putting duct tape on a sinking boat. If we really want to end homelessness in Venice, not manage it, not cosmetically cover it, but end it, then we need to rethink the system from the ground up. The first piece of the puzzle is permanent supportive housing. Not tents, not short-term hotel vouchers. Real, livable homes, combined with wraparound services like mental health care, addiction treatment, job training, and trauma-informed support. These programs work. Study after study shows that when people have stable housing first, everything else becomes more possible. Yet, in Venice, we still treat housing like a reward for compliance instead of a human right. Second, we must overhaul zoning laws and land use policies. Venice can't keep pretending it's a sleepy beach town while also trying to house a modern urban population. The resistance to new housing developments, especially affordable and supportive housing, needs to stop. NIMBYism is not just a personal preference, it's a political act that keeps people on the streets. When wealthy residents fight tooth and nail to block housing projects, they are choosing aesthetics over lives. Third, local government must stop relying on law enforcement as the front line of homelessness response. Police officers are not social workers, and jail is not a housing solution. Sweep and encampment clearings might make things look cleaner for a few days, but they scatter the unhoused, destroy their belongings, and push them further from any chance of recovery. It's the equivalent of sweeping dust under a rug, except the dust is made of human beings. Fourth, we need a dedicated public health response. Many individuals experiencing homelessness are also dealing with untreated mental illness, chronic health conditions, or addiction, all of which are worsened by living on the street. If we treated this crisis like the public health emergency it is, we'd see mobile clinics, 24/7 crisis response teams, harm reduction programs, and long-term care facilities become standard. But these efforts won't go far without a regional strategy. Venice cannot solve this alone, nor should it be expected to. Homelessness in America is not a neighborhood problem, it's a national one. We need coordination between Los Angeles County, California, state leaders, and federal agencies. That means funding pipelines, integrated data systems, and shared accountability. No more passing the buck. And finally, we need a cultural shift in how we see the homeless. These are not those people. They are veterans, former nurses, domestic violence survivors, people who worked construction jobs until a back injury ended it all. They are artists, neighbors, sometimes even friends, who fell through cracks we've all ignored for too long. We can't keep treating this issue as if it's someone else's responsibility. Venice could be a leader, a case study in how a wealthy, progressive community chose compassion over comfort and built a model that worked. But only if we're ready to make bold, often unpopular decisions. So the real question is, do we actually want to end homelessness? Or are we more comfortable pretending we're trying? Because, make no mistake, homeless in America is a symptom of collective failure, but it doesn't have to be our permanent reality. Talking about homelessness shouldn't be taboo. It shouldn't be limited to campaign speeches or quick media sound bites. It needs to be in our schools, our dinner conversations, our city council meetings. Because until we collectively acknowledge that this crisis exists and that it affects all of us, we'll keep watching it spiral out of control. Education is power, awareness is action, but silence is complicity. Venice is not broken, it's just afraid. Afraid to confront its contradictions. Afraid to admit that some of its beauty was built on the backs of those now forgotten. But what if we weren't afraid anymore? What if we chose to see homelessness not as a stain on our streets, but as a mirror of our society? The truth is, being homeless in America shouldn't exist in a country with this much money, this much innovation, this much potential. We don't lack the resources, we lack the will. And will doesn't come from institutions, it comes from people like you. So if you've made it this far, thank you for caring enough to listen, but don't let it end here. If this story moved you, even just a little, please take a second to like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Daily Homeless News. This platform isn't just about reporting problems. It's about starting conversations that can lead to solutions. You never know who needs to hear this message today. Together, let's turn awareness into empathy. Empathy into action, and action into change. Because in the end, the measure of any society isn't how it treats its wealthiest, but how it treats the people with nothing left.